Welcome to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by Review Maxer.
Hello and welcome to On Top of PR. I'm your host, Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. Today we're joined by Holly Bishop. Holly is a social media professional, and we're talking today about social media, more specifically, why your social media isn't working. Fun fact, Holly used to work at Axia, and we're excited to have her on the show today. She's in the social media business and advises companies on how to do a great job with their social media and is in the trenches doing great work. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And ultimately, why your social media isn't working, candidly, why your social media sucks, because a lot of it does. And we're here today to figure that out and help you figure that out, help you improve it and become a social media wizard like Holly is. So Holly, welcome to the show. We're glad you're here.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
We're excited to have you too. Holly and I have known each other for a while, and we've stayed in touch over the years and followed her career. And really glad to have you back at Axia here as far as being on top of PR. So Holly, I want to jump right in and talk about kind of understanding professional social media roles and resource management. I know you and I have talked. We've done a previous episode, which we'll link to in the episode notes, about why it's hard to have a one-person social media team. The cliche is there's no I in team, yet so often the social media team is one person. I empathize with that because I've seen that firsthand, and I see it at most companies. When I talk to most companies, Holly, they tell me, "Oh, our social media is fine. We don't need any help. We've got somebody." And I'm like, "Yeah, you really don't know how hard social media really is." So,
No.
Holly, take it away. Tell us about this.
It's interesting because when I first was with Axia, that was about 10 years ago. Social media wasn't a thing that was a job. It wasn't a role. It wasn't something that companies were looking at as something to capitalize on and take advantage of. And it has really, really grown. And even now, as we're going into 2024, the understanding of what it takes to be good at social media is still evolving for brands to fully grasp and comprehend and understand. The professionals that are in the trenches every day, we see it, we know, and we all like and comment and absolutely this on all of each other's LinkedIn posts. But it's also important for all the levels inside of companies to recognize the importance of having a specialized area, a person in this role. And there is also such a misconception within this field of work as well about how multifaceted social media roles can be, in that many companies or brands will think, "Oh, you're going to be great. You know how to film this video. You know how to write this post. You know how to use this software. You can just do everything from content creation, video editing, graphic design, social strategy, community management. Oh, you can also manage all of our UGC, our user generated content, and you can help bring in all of our influencers, and you can do all of that too. Don't forget, you can also help write all of our paid social ads too." That's just so much for
Right.
one person to do well.
Yeah.
One person can juggle it and maybe drop some balls here and there, but doing it well is the key. So they can do it. It's just not going to be looking all that great. And so knowing the value of a really good social media manager and what they can offer is so important, but also providing support for that person. If you can't have a multi-member team for social media, how about maybe utilize your UX expert coming in and helping with things, or someone from the creative team or the photographer or videographer providing kind of like a supportive role for your social manager, and being able to give them those elements and those pieces of content that they've planned for and strategized and researched for, but they don't have the bandwidth to also go and create it as well. I personally am very good with strategy and research and community management, but graphic design and long form content video creation is not my wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of misconception that, oh, you're a social media manager, you can do all of these things and you're an expert at every single social media platform. And that is just not the case. There is no such thing as the unicorn that can do all of that and do it well. So that's a huge part of just fully understanding what it entails to be a social professional, and providing them the support to give your brand quality content with those supports, and really bringing it to the next level to stand out among your competitors is really the goal.
Right, right. And Holly, I don't have to tell you, and perhaps I don't even have to tell our audience, but companies either don't prioritize social media, or they don't have the resources to make it an entire team, right? And the other thing I'm noticing, Holly, here is that yet social media is a very powerful tool that is a global audience, right? And so what you were describing earlier made me think of this. So if a company wanted to do a first class advertising campaign, right, they would go out and they would either in-house or outsource. And by the way, when you were talking about all those different roles, right, kind of hard to justify having a huge in-house team where you could lean on an external team like an agency that specializes in social media, and they can lend those resources. But that's a conversation for another time. But when you're comparing a one-person team to an agency, it may not be as scalable for them. But if they really want to take their social to the next level, they should do that. And my analogy is this: if you wanted to do an ad campaign, and do it well and do it right, you probably wouldn't have one person in-house doing all the things you just talked about: the photography, the design, the copywriting, the headline, the call to action, just all those things that go into a campaign. Plus, if you're doing a campaign well, you're going to have different executions. You might have, a web ad, a print ad, a billboard, an email, and all these other things. So that requires a whole lot of people. But for some reason, when we get in our head social media, we think, oh, just one person can do all of those things, right? And I think they're really missing the mark here when you're thinking about how important it is to have a team do something great. If you want something done great, by one person can't do something great alone. They need others around them. And if you look at anybody who's been successful in life, it's the people around them that help them get there. Now, they did a lot of the hard work and they are entitled to the credit, but they should also be giving credit to the people around them. And when I look at social media, I think the same thing. We have this misconception that it's just a one-person job. And here's the other thing: as you were talking earlier, you're describing a scenario, and I don't know if this was clear to our audience, of you're doing this work simultaneously for multiple brands, right? And so if you're a one-person social media team doing all, 16 things that you outlined, and then doing it for each brand on 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or more possible channels for then, 6, 8 or more brands, that's a lot of work, right? So, we should probably point in our episode notes to people who are like, that makes sense to me, to some of our work-life balance past episodes that we've done, right?
Oh, gosh,
and maybe you've got some tips we can talk about at the end, how you find sanity, probably besides, listening to music really loud on your way home, and maybe some days having a box of Kleenex, right?
Right, exactly. It's you hit the nail on the head with that. Honestly, it's something that social media managers are really discussing in our own community right now, especially as we enter into 2024, and everyone is trying to make their resolutions and everything. And I'm seeing a huge shift in social managers and professionals embracing the fact that our screen time is probably triple what a normal person's would be by Wednesday afternoon. And it just is what it is, but also knowing when to turn things off and when to be unavailable,
Yeah.
because we are so very much invested in our work and we love our jobs. Absolutely love it, because this is the kind of stuff, this is the kind of role that you wouldn't be doing unless you were genuinely passionate about it. And we also have our own personal social medias too, which most of which are almost always suffering and looking terrible because we're always so focused on the brands
Right.
that we run. But finding that balance and making sure that also the brands that you work for know, hey, these are my limits, and this is kind of where we need to have that healthy cadence of time frames and boundaries, and then it's important from an individual professional perspective of keeping to those boundaries as well for your own health and sanity too.
So, Holly, one conversation that you're making me think of here is that I know social media professionals are online talking about the difficulty of working in social media. I know firsthand as an agency owner that social media tends to have high turnover. I sense that there are not enough conversations on the brand side about this topic, and I think there should be more conversations about it. Um, I think what happens is people get into social media. I know most people would say young people, young professionals get into social media, but I don't think that's true per se. I think that people are just attracted to social media for a variety of reasons. I think they see it as being glamorous. They see influencers doing it, and they say, "Oh, I want to do that too." What they don't realize is that, one, it's not glamorous like they think it is, because the social media team is generally behind the camera, not in front of the camera. The biggest influencers all have staff that work for them that do the video editing and the sponsorships and all that stuff. Second thing is they also don't realize that what got them there doesn't get them to be successful in social media. And what I mean by that is they may be really good with their personal social media, but what they don't realize is the expectation for professional social media is way higher, right? They can get away with typos and incomplete sentences on their personal social, but you do that corporate side, there's not going to be a lot of forgiveness or patience for that type of stuff. And the third thing is most companies of credibility have a brand standard that needs to be followed, a certain voice that you have to follow. And some people really don't see that the social media is strategic. They're very focused on the tacticals and the tactics and doing things that seem fun or cool. And then they show up for work and it's like, wow, this is a job. The expectations are high. Because the risks are high also, and the visibility in the platform is very high. So Holly, that's a loaded question that I'm sending back to you to say, how do we improve the turnover? How do we improve the work-life balance of social media professionals?
Yeah, I completely agree. There is such a distinction between an influencer running their personal brand and a social media professional running the social media for a company brand that's selling a product or service or whatever. And it is so important for all of the parties involved to recognize that, yes, behind the scenes there should be supports put in place, that these influencers doing what looks glamorous do have that support behind them. They are hiring video editors, they are hiring personal assistants, they have a whole team behind them. It's a
Makeup
completely
artists,
different, yeah, it's a completely different
yeah,
type
brand
of
managers, yeah.
social media content. That's content creation, is the way that I
Mhm.
personally view it. When you come in with a brand, you can absolutely run with the fun things of social. It's really important. I want to make it very clear, even for serious brands, it is important to have fun with things that you
Absolutely.
are being put out with social media, because at the end of the day, as a consumer, for your audience that you are speaking to, if it's boring or if it's not giving a hook or if it's not interesting or providing that value or emotion invoking, why would they want to read what you have to put out anyways? So that's where having a really good professional working for your brand is so important, because they are able to take that fun side, but
Hmm.
still utilize the important brand messaging and standards that you have for that specific brand, but just making it, their own, being able to speak in a way to that brand's audience that captures their attention, but still follows those rules of professionality, that really kind of wrap it all together in a nice fancy bow, if that's a good way of putting it.
Sure. It's a
And
package. Yeah, it's a
it
full
really
package. Yeah.
is. And that's where that burnout aspect comes in, because if there isn't that support to give for the social professional to be able
Hmm.
to do those things with having that creative team or having a video editor or a graphic designer in their corner, then they won't be able to have that fun aspect in it and have that good strategy without that support. And so they're kind of just running the whole show as the directors of everything and trying their best, and that's when the burnout comes, because they can only do that for so long, being completely all out there alone doing everything.
Yeah, and I think what's also missing is people don't realize the brand should have personalities, and you need that a
Mhm.
social media manager who has some personality, in their writing and in their communication style, and whether that personality is going to be helpful, if it's going to be entertaining and fun, if it's going to be informative. There's a lot of different personality types your brand can have, but if your social media is just putting content out there,
Mhm.
especially promotional content, and it's not really making a connection, then you really should rethink. And our topic today is why your social media isn't working. Well, that's probably one of the reasons if you're not letting some personality in.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. And it kind of goes into what I personally believe is one of the main problems with brand social media is the lack of realizing who you're talking to and providing that value or entertainment, and they're just kind of treating their social media like walking billboards. Here's our
Mm,
product, it's on sale, here's a promo code, come buy this, and here's a really
yeah,
pretty picture, and then
right.
calling it a day. It's treating that organic social media as an ad space
Hmm.
when it really is a community engagement space. It's providing value to the people who you want to be potential customers, or people who are really just at the top of that funnel and don't even know who you are yet.
Yeah.
Why are we just wanting to throw salesy stuff at them, when
Hmm.
it can be kind of bringing them in with whatever kind of hook via storytelling or case studies, or just any kind of whoever your audience is, what pick a niche. You can find what their problem is, and here, let me offer a solution to your problem, and then you can sprinkle in a little bit of that product or service placement with that aspect in mind. But it's valuable, entertaining, and relatable content is key. It needs to grab them from their scrolling of just disassociating, as many people do on their phones. It's
Hmm.
what can pull them in, and what can make them want to say, oh, what does that say, what is this company saying? For me personally, I'm not going to stop unless I see something that really pulls my attention, because I'm
Yeah.
also in this world all day long. It takes a lot to pull my attention, but imagine the people who are just going on their phones to look for something entertaining after a long day. They don't want to see a sales ad from a company who they thought that they liked, or maybe just happened to see. It needs to provide that value. You got to know your audience at the end of the day. Knowing your audience is
Yeah.
really so key.
It doesn't matter what type of social media or what type of media we're talking about, but at the end of the day, no one goes on social media to see who's advertising, right?
Hmm.
No one's going on social media to say, "Oh, I can't wait to see what they're trying to sell me today on my Facebook feed or whatever it might be." So,
Exactly.
the minute you realize that, I think, and look at your competition, meaning how much competition you have, you want to create an environment that people feel safe and comfortable. Speaking of which, the next item on our list here is trust and flexibility.
Hmm.
And I'm sure that is referring to the trust and flexibility that leadership should offer to their social media team.
Exactly. There is so many social professionals out there that, and I see this daily. It's not a complaint per se, it's more of an exasperation cry for many social professionals in this space of all the excessive hurdles we have to jump through, or the red tape. And there's hilarious memes floating around I've seen recently on LinkedIn of, okay, I've spent 84 years waiting for legal to get back to me to approve that one meme I wanted to post, and
Right.
so it's kind of cutting back on the, well, let's have this meeting tomorrow with the director of so and so, and then let's bring legal in, and then let's ask our CMO, and then let's ask the whatever of the whatever. You know what I mean? And it's, at the end of the day, the trend is gone now. It's not funny anymore. We've kind of missed the boat for it, and it just doesn't. It's almost impertinent at this point, and it just kind of lost its value. And then also the trust factor of let your social media professional, whether it be, they're just a manager or they're a strategist or they're a community engager, let them pitch ideas and give them the trust to kind of run with that, trusting that they know the brand, they know the professional rules, but letting them kind of experiment a bit with the audience or potential audience that you haven't reached yet, and giving them the faith and that extra space to let things flop and see what might go viral, see what might grab some traffic, see what might just get some community engagement. At the end
Right.
of the day, I think social media managers in general, if we can just get engagement like comments or
Hmm.
responses, that's like the meat and potatoes. That's the gold. Because that right there, if the person took the time to type words out directly to speak to you and your brand and your company, that's the money. That's the money right there. Because now you've gotten a person who's shown and expressed interest. And if you don't have the trust in your social media manager to go out and get that, then they really won't be able to. They If they don't have that faith and they're kind of pulled in on a tight leash through all these hurdles and red tape, it's going to be a struggle through the murky waters of the long haul of organic social media. And that's really kind of the base issue there with that.
And your point is well taken, well made. That when someone takes the time to engage by commenting, that shows they're making a connection. You're building a relationship. Speaking of, I want to jump ahead. I know this was like our bonus takeaway we were going to talk about, but I feel like it's just a natural tie to mention it now, which is kind of, and we talked about this before we pressed record, right? This idea of the importance of engaging with customers. And I think this is part of the challenge of having small social media teams. Is social media teams, as our audience well knows, is often assigned to also manage DMs, and a lot of times those DMs or messages that are sent from customers through social media are often really social or customer service type inquiries, right?
Hmm.
I know I go on Twitter when I have an issue with something with a big company, and I get a good response. These big companies have a dedicated customer service team that's managing those DMs. But in smaller organizations, I sense and perceive and have seen where, it's being managed by their social media manager or their social media team. Holly, I know you want to talk about that. So let's talk about that for a minute. We'll go back to the other things.
Yeah, you're so right. I quite literally only time I go on Twitter is when I need to get a hold of my certain internet provider because I have a problem.
Right,
And I
right.
know that they're going to respond, and that's the best way to get a hold of them quickly. Um, I 100% agree. It's the customer service aspect is invaluable, because if you can be that intercept of catching a potential customer with a question, or an angry customer with a problem, or whatever the case may be, that is where people know to go to get a hold of a person. If
Mm-hmm,
they're having a
mm-hmm.
hard time getting a hold of a human being, if it's a large brand, if they're having a hard time getting a hold of a human being via customer service, I can tell you they are going straight to social media, and you need to have a plan for that. You need to
Yeah.
have a response for it. um, my current role, we just got through, I work in e-commerce, and we just got through peak season between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and our customer service team was just hustling, and they were doing an amazing job. But I was able to kind of be the intermediary for the stragglers that came and reached out to us on social media. And it ended several times with people saying, "Oh, thank you so much for making this so easy. Thank you for responding so quickly, because we are right there on the front lines. We need to be able to catch them quickly,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes it is time sensitive." And I was able to help make customers for life, because they were so appreciative of that relationship that I was able to foster,
Yeah.
with those conversations in DMs. And a lot of times that part of social media is so forgotten about. But Instagram also just came out with some stats, just recently, that 84% of social media referral traffic is done via like dark social, like DMs or person to person,
Mm-hmm.
referral things. That's not trackable
Right.
in GA4. That's not able to be caught. And that's that
Hmm.
the DM aspect of things. People are spending more time in their DMs on Instagram than they are in the comment section.
Mm.
And so not taking time to either set up auto responses or quick alerts, to have a dedicated team or a dedicated person in a smaller organization to be able to have a response for specific commonly asked questions
Right.
at the very basics, that's a huge mark that would be missed. You are missing out on creating amazing relationships with potential big, what I would like to call them would be brand promoters. They're not paid influencers, but these are people who had such an amazing experience with your brand, even just via DMs of social media, that they're telling everybody that they know what a great experience they had. And
Hmm.
that's just immeasurable.
Yeah.
It's just so vital.
So over the years, we've worked with several retailers that have multiple, retail stores. We've worked with several urgent care centers that have multiple locations. And, what we've experienced is people will DM there and ask very specific questions about, company policy, or to ask about a certain customer interaction, or to inquire, hey, I know there's a, weather in this area. Is your store going to be open? And I'm not even getting to like the nuanced, very detailed questions that people
Mhm.
will pose. And so that's always been a conversation we've had to have with clients is, are you expecting us to manage the direct messages? Because we really, that may be a challenge, right? And it might be a challenge for even if you had an in-house social media team, because the truth is they'd have to pick up the phone and call a location or reach out to a manager and things like that. People will ask, with the urgent care thing about billing and what providers, or I'm sorry, what insurance do you carry, and will I have to pay for this or that, and what does it cost? And when you're dealing with dozens of locations, the response I hate to give as an advisor is to say, oh well, you'll need to contact the
Yeah.
local location. They're
Mhm.
like, I made the effort already. Can't you help me? And so, a lot of times, for me, clients just think, oh, that'll be easy, but that takes a lot of time, and it pulls. If you have social media experts assigned to that, it's not their highest and best use.
Mhm.
So I believe in the importance of integrating at least one person to manage kind of customer service on social media. It really just depends on the volume, and that's what we talk to clients about is, well, how much volume are you expecting?
Mhm.
Um, and do you have a budget to allocate a concierge, if you will, to
Mhm.
liaison between the social media presence and customer service? Or could you have someone who just is one of your star performers who could also adopt and take on that additional responsibility?
Absolutely. I 100% agree. If you can't have someone constantly focused on the DMs, at the very least have some sort of warm and not AI sounding auto response that can direct the customer where to go if you can't get to them as quickly as you
Hmm.
may prefer to. If your resources are low at a very basic level, just having some sort of response to show them where to go to find some answers, even that can go very, very far,
Yeah,
versus
yeah.
having no response at all because you just didn't have the resources to catch those messages. You don't want to leave them hanging. That's, at the end of the day, give them something.
Yeah, exactly. Holly, we've got two more things on our agenda, but I want to take a quick break and come back on the other side with more from Holly Bishop.
You're listening to On Top of PR with your host, Jason Mudd. Jason is a trusted advisor to some of America's most admired and fastest growing brands. He is the managing partner at Axia Public Relations, a PR agency that guides news, social, and web strategies for national companies. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to On Top of PR with Jason Mudd. I am Jason Mudd, and I'm joined with Holly Bishop, and we're talking about why your social media isn't working. Holly's got two more reasons for that, and the first one is talking about platform strategy and goals. So, Holly, tell us about this.
Right. So it's really important to, this kind of also comes back through the having the trust and the flexibility with your social media managers, in that you can't expect your brand to be on every single platform and be doing a mediocre job, especially if you've got a one person team. And if you don't have a strategy for each platform or goals of what you're doing on each platform and the bandwidth to provide quality content on each one of those platforms, then you're essentially going to be doing a mediocre job across all the platforms versus the option of going where you know your audience is. You've done your audience analysis. You had a team that probably did that. You know who you're kind of looking to aim towards. Find out which platforms they're primarily using and just focus on those. It would be so much better for your brand, for your social media manager and their non-burnout hopes to let them focus on the core channels and platforms. So if you're focusing on Gen Zers, you're going to want to hit TikTok and Instagram. You're not going to probably want to be on Facebook, or if you're focusing on an older generation, you're going to want to go where they are, which is usually Facebook. Sometimes they're on X or Twitter. You just kind of have to know where your people are and then just do it really well on just those. There is no rule that says you have to be across every single platform and have a presence everywhere. That's really just not true, because if you are everywhere and you're not doing very well, it's not a good look. So it's better to just have no presence whatsoever on platforms you don't intend on having a strategy for and having a plan for, than to have a presence and it's just kind of sitting there and it doesn't look very professional. It doesn't look like you have your act together, and it's just not a good look. And my main point, my final point of the main thing that social brand that brands are doing wrong is, and I touched on this before, is having content value and building the relationship. Community engagement is where you're going to grow with organic social media. And it at the end of the day, it's knowing that organic social, it's the long haul. This is not we're not here to go be viral every day.
Mhm,
That's
mhm,
just not, that shouldn't be the goal. It should never be the end goal. The end goal should be creating those relationships and creating a community of people. Like I say this too, and I've seen several other professionals say this. I would rather have an engaged conversational community of 1,000 than 100,000 or 1,000,000 followers that hardly ever see our content, don't ever
mhm,
engage, and they're just a number on our social media platform metrics. Because what's that metric really doing for you? Followers is never the goal. It's the engagement. It's that building of relationships that's so important to prioritize. And having having that valuable content is going to be the way to bring that in. And there's some companies right now and brands that are doing an incredible job at it. Like Duolingo, for example, they got a mascot of a little owl, and they have a whole team, granted, but it is so fun to see that majority of their TikToks that they're posting is not talking about learning another language in any way, shape, or form. It's just really hilarious, entertaining content, and people are following them and they're engaging with them. But the key part that they're getting right is the comments section.
mm,
People respond to these funny videos, and their social professionals that are responding to comments are hilarious. And it'll be like just these quick little witty quips, and it just cracks you up, and it's getting people engaging in the comment section, which not only builds relationship and builds that strong authentic foundation, but that also does help the algorithm, and it pushes your content higher up in the level and pushes it out to more people's feeds to see. So when companies are doing content right, it's making those people make comments on your videos or your static posts or your carousels on Instagram or your reels. But if you're not commenting back, then that
mhm,
amazing content's not going to go anywhere. So responding back to them, I can't tell you how many times I have commented on a brand's post, and I was one of the people who they decided to respond back with, oh, the giddy laugh of glee that I will have, because I'm like, oh my gosh, they saw my comment. And I
right.
work in social media, and I still am like starstruck because this brand acknowledged me.
Yeah.
That is a huge, very easy act that your single person team or a collective team can do that doesn't require a ton of effort really at all.
Yeah.
But acknowledging the people that are there consuming your content and is kind of like your way of appreciating them for being there and telling them that you appreciate their engagement and their being
Right.
with your brand. That's
Yeah.
that's the relationship at the end of the
Yeah.
day. That's its basic form.
Yeah, yeah. You're fanning a little bit when it happens, right? And
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
I can relate. You know, some actors that I follow or bands that I follow, I've commented, and they've engaged back, and you don't really know if it's their handler or whatever. But it's just nice to see that at least somebody's listening to you or at least acknowledging your comments. So, yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. And that kind of thing. So, Holly, it's been a pleasure connecting with you. I think we've given out a lot of good advice today, and I appreciate you being here. If somebody wants to connect with you on LinkedIn or otherwise, like how do you want our audience to connect with you if they have a question or they just want to, comment to you?
Yeah, I am on all of the platforms. I am on LinkedIn, absolutely, and I am also on TikTok. You will see, like, I think I have like 300 followers. I don't get to spend a ton of time on there, but I do
Sure.
love
Shoemaker's children,
engaging.
right?
Yeah,
Cobbler's
I
kids.
change my handle quite often, so I will make sure that it is put in the podcast notes.
All right, excellent. Well, Holly, thank you for being here. It's been a real pleasure to have you. And to our audience, we thank you for being here and helping us help you stay on top of PR. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to share it on social media or with a friend who you think would benefit. We would appreciate that, and so will they. With that, I'm signing off. This is Jason Mudd with Axia Public Relations. Glad to help you and here to help you stay on top of PR. Thank you.
This has been On Top of PR with Jason Mudd, presented by ReviewMaxer. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode, and check out past shows at ontopofpr.com.